There's a version of you that walks into a room and nobody notices. You say your piece and people talk over you. You send the text and they leave you on red. You do everything right. You're nice, you're helpful, but you feel like a ghost in your own life. You wonder why some people have an invisible gravity that commands respect without a word, while you have to fight for scraps of attention. The difference isn't money or looks. It's one tiny switch in your brain, and once you flip it, the world changes instantly. Let me tell you about Arthur. Arthur was the yes man. If his boss asked him to stay late, he stayed. If his friends canceled last minute, he smiled and said, "No worries." He thought he was being easygoing. But deep down, Arthur was terrified. He was trading his dignity for approval, and he was getting ripped off every single day. One Tuesday, Arthur hit a wall. He was sitting in a diner booth, waiting for a friend who was already 40 minutes late. Marcus did this all the time. Arthur checked his phone. No text, just silence. The waitress poured him more coffee, giving him that pity look. The one that says, "You got stood up, honey." Usually, Arthur would wait. He would make excuses for Marcus. But today, he felt a quiet click in his chest, like a lock turning. He realized he wasn't waiting for Marcus. He was waiting for permission to leave. By sitting there, staring at the door, he was telling the universe, "My time is worth nothing. Treat me like trash and I'll still be here." Arthur stood up. He put $5 on the table. He didn't call Marcus. He just walked out. That was the first step, but the real shift happened 2 hours later. Arthur was home reading when his phone finally buzzed. It was Marcus. "Bro, so sorry, lost track of time. I'm 5 minutes away. Where are you?" Arthur's old instinct kicked in. He wanted to say, "It's okay, I'll come back." He wanted to smooth it over. His heart raced. If he said no, would he lose the friendship? The fear of conflict gripped his throat. But he remembered the cold coffee. He remembered the pity look. He typed 2 sentences. "I headed home. Let's try again next week." He didn't apologize. He didn't add a sad emoji. He just stated the fact. He set a boundary without an electric fence. He put the phone down and waited for the fallout. He expected anger, but the phone stayed silent. The next day, the same energy followed him to work. His boss, a man who loved dumping projects on Arthur at 4:55 p.m., walked over with a stack of papers. "Hey, Artie, need this done by tomorrow morning," he said, dropping the pile without looking. Old Arthur would have panicked and stayed until midnight, but new Arthur was still riding the wave from the diner. He looked at the papers, then looked at his boss. He held the eye contact for 1 second longer than usual, a second that felt like a lifetime. "I can't get to this tonight," Arthur said, his voice flat and calm. "I'll start on it first thing tomorrow." The boss paused. He looked at Arthur like he was seeing a stranger. He opened his mouth to bully him, but he saw something in Arthur's eyes. It wasn't aggression, it was absence, the absence of fear. Arthur wasn't asking for permission, he was informing him of reality. "All right," the boss muttered, picking up the files. "Just get it done early." Arthur walked out at 5 p.m. The air outside felt sharper. He realized that for his entire life, he had been training people to treat him poorly. By removing his fear of losing them, he had gained their respect. The twist is that nobody treated Arthur differently because they changed. They treated him differently because he changed the price tag. When you walk into a room desperate for approval, you're a clearance item. People smell the desperation. But when you're willing to walk away, to eat alone, to leave the unread text, to say no without an excuse, you become rare. It wasn't about being mean. Arthur was still kind, but his kindness was no longer a tax he paid to exist. It was a gift he chose to give, and the moment you stop tolerating scraps, the world stops serving them to you.